All right, today we're going to look at the labor movement and how workers are going to rise up and call for change to their current work conditions. Two terms you need to know. One, strike. A strike is a form of protest through a refusal to work. So where workers refuse to do their job until conditions change. Second term is union. A union is an organization of workers formed to protect the rights and interests of its members while at work. So one thing that's going to be helpful to know once we talk about specific strikes in class is this idea of company towns. As factories and businesses and companies are growing larger and larger and causing workers to work more and more hours, they're going to set up these towns. So these communities that are designed just for the company, and homes and houses will be rented out to the employees who work for the company. It sounds like a really great idea. So families are right there, right next to the company where workers are going to be. They don't have to go far to get to home. They also have a company store right there that they can access to get whatever goods they may need. The problem is going to be is the company is going to control all aspects of employees' lives, not just what happens to them while they're at work, but also the decisions they are allowed to make outside of work. A lot of company stores are company towns are going to force their employees to shop at the company stores. They can't go somewhere else. So the company can raise its prices up higher and higher because their workers have to go there. They can't go anywhere else that may sell products cheaper. There's also going to be the system of credit at the store. So instead of waiting until the end of the month for my paycheck, I can go to the store and buy a product on credit. So I can buy milk, eggs, flour, whatever today, but pay for it at the end of the month once I get my paycheck. But the problem with that is going to be the high interest rates that are going to be charged. After rent, after paying off the credit and the high interest for what I owe from the beginning of the month, most of a worker's paycheck is going to go back to the company, if not more than their paycheck. So we start to see a lot of workers falling into debt. It is going to become illegal for you to leave your job without paying back your loans. So a worker who might be going more and more into debt has to continue to work, live, and shop with that company until they pay back their loans. But they're going to get more into debt as they stay. They can't go find work elsewhere or better working conditions. And we're going to create this cycle of what we call a wage slavery. So people can't leave. Essentially, they're working for free as they get more and more into debt with that company who is taking more from that employee than they are getting paid. We're going to see a strike. Back for a sec. We're going to see a strike that comes from one of these situations where workers are fed up with these conditions. But we're going to have this rise in what we call the labor movement. The labor movement is where workers who have had enough will come together and unify, essentially creating unions to demand better working conditions and rights for themselves. So they're going to fight for better wages, better hours, having different safety put into place so that things like the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire won't happen. Conditions like we see with the jungle, like unsanitary, unsafe conditions, workers will be protected from that. And if they do get hurt on the job, there will be some way to support those who get injured working for the company. It's really hard to talk about the labor movement without recognizing the political shift that's happening over in Europe. In Europe at this time, we're seeing a lot of workers facing similar situations, being abused and having really terrible conditions from the wealthy class and the factory owners. And so there's going to be this rise in socialism. The Communist Manifesto is going to be written by Karl Marx over in Europe. And this essentially is calling for the working class to rise up, take power back from the small few, the wealthy, and spread it out to the masses, spread everything equally. Socialism is an idea, a governmental idea about favoring public control of property and wealth versus the private sector controlling it. So this idea is going to spread in different European countries, and the ideas are going to come across over to the United States. A small group of Americans who are fed up with the system believe it's time for a governmental shift towards socialism because they don't feel the government is protecting the working class from the wealthy class. But the majority of people are going to reject socialism, saying this is against the idea of free enterprise capitalism that we have here in the United States with the democracy. But labor activists are going to look at that idea of the masses rising up, not to overthrow government, but in order to call for social reform, saying we need change and we're going to work as a group to do that. So with the labor movement, we're going to see the creation of labor unions. Labor unions are going to be there to fight for their workers. So a small group of people who will go in and advocate for for the members of their union, the other workers at the factory, calling for better conditions. The power of a union is this thing called collective bargaining. I'm going to say it again. The power of unions is this thing called collective bargaining. Collective bargaining is where you have a collective or a group that will stand together and have one person do the negotiating for them. That one person who negotiates is supported by the rest of the union, the hundreds, sometimes thousands of other employees who say, yes, you negotiate for us, help us get better conditions or higher wages. The power of collective bargaining for the workers is they have more power behind their demands. If they don't see improvements, if they can't find a compromise with the company, they can say they will protest, and many unions did. The idea is that if there's not that higher wages or better working conditions or safety protocols put into place, all of the members of the union, typically a lot of the company members and a lot of employees, will go on strike. By going on strike, they say, we refuse to work, you will not make money until you meet our demands, or at least part of our demands, meet us partway, and then we will come back to work once things have gotten better. We're going to look at different strikes and different unions a little bit more in class to see the specifics. How are they working? Why are they doing it? How successful are they? But go ahead and answer those questions, and I will see you in class.